Hello and welcome to 2021. I hope you're all right. It's lovely to see you again and a real privilege to be able to bring you these stories and these crafts during this time. I know that things are a bit difficult and a bit different at home, and you've got screens and some of you have got older children, but watch these videos when you've got a moment, whenever you're free. It could be just before bed, it could be just stop for 5 minutes, but please feel free to do as much or as little as you can. This term we're going to be thinking about special children within the Bible, and then in our Zooms we're going to be thinking about our senses. And this week coming up we're thinking about hearing, and I've got a story for you today and a few crafts ideas that you can do about listening. And it all revolves around just 3 people really. The first one is our lady called Hannah, and Hannah was a very sad lady. Can you make a sad face? She was very sad because she didn't have any babies. She wanted to be a mummy more than anything, and she didn't have any children. And one day she was in the temple, the special place where people went to talk to God, and she started to pray. And she was so sad, she started to cry. And the man who works in the temple, Eli, he came up and he heard her, and he wondered what was wrong. And he asked her, "What's the matter? Is everything all right?" And she was so sad. She said, "Oh, I'm just so sad. I want to have a baby, but I haven't got any children yet. And I'm crying out to God to hear my prayer. And I do hope that I will be able to have children." And Eli heard her and said, "Be rest assured, yes, you will have a baby." And Hannah had made a promise. She said, "If I have a baby, I will give him back to God. He can come and work here in the temple for you." And you know, she did have a baby. She had a baby boy called Samuel. And Samuel grew, and each year she would think, "Is he ready? Is he ready?" And when he was old enough to leave home, he went to live in the temple and work for Eli. Now here's Samuel. He's still quite a little boy. He wasn't very big. We don't know quite how old he was, but he wasn't that old at all. And he had a special job to do. His job was to make sure that the special light in the temple was always alight. Now, they didn't have light switches and electricity and torches in those days. It was a candle and it was a flame, and it used oil. And it was Samuel's job, even though he was quite young, to make sure there was enough oil in the lamp to keep the flame burning. And one night, Samuel got ready for bed. He lay down in his bed, and Eli did too, over in his room. They both lay down and went to sleep. But suddenly, Samuel heard a voice saying, "Samuel, Samuel." Now immediately Samuel woke up, he heard the voice, and he ran all the way to Eli and said, "Eli, what did you want?" But look, Eli was still asleep. "Oh," he said, "it wasn't me. Go back to bed." So Samuel went all the way back to his bed, lay down and went back to sleep. And then the voice, "Samuel, Samuel." What must Eli want? Back he ran to Eli. "Yes, Eli, what did you want?" "No, it wasn't me. Go back to bed." And you know, it happened again. And the third time he ran to Eli, and Eli said, "Oh, it's not me. It must be God who's talking to you. Now, next time you hear that voice, sit up in bed and say, 'Speak, God, because I'm listening.'" So Samuel went back to his bed and did exactly as Eli had said. He lay down and waited. And when he heard the voice again saying, "Samuel, Samuel," he sat up in bed and he said, "Speak, God, because I'm listening." And God gave him a very special message. It was a message straight from God to tell Eli and all the people. And that was the first of the messages that Samuel had, because Samuel became what we call a prophet, a man who could hear from God and tell everyone else about it. And I love this story because Samuel wasn't very old, but he still could hear God. And he had to be in that quiet place so that he could hear. I don't think it's a surprise that it was at night time, not when he was all busy. And sometimes I think we just need to stop and be just a little bit quiet, don't we? So that we can hear what God's saying and what God's showing us to do. And that's made me think about our ears and listening. And in our Zoom calls this week, we're going to be making lots of noise and thinking about sounds and how we use our ears to hearing. And I've got some ideas that you could make before we meet up. And it doesn't take very long. And I hope you've got all of these things all around you at home. And I've just been and collected a few things from around my house now. And now I've got some ideas for you. There are 3 kinds of noise really that you can make, aren't there, with an instrument. Now, the first one, and really, really easy one, is you could just find an old pot, something like this, or maybe just one of these. I'm sure you've got these in your cupboard. And just find yourself either some rice or some pasta, and probably should have a spoon, shouldn't you, to do it. But I'm just going to take a little bit of pasta because my hands are clean. But when you do it and you get the rice, make sure that you've got a spoon, and Mummy or Daddy help you. And if you put them in, it just makes a really good shaky noise. If you haven't got one of these things, you might even have, one of these travel mugs with a lid. That would go in. But I could do that now. This one makes a really good sound. Listen. Such a good sound. If you're a bit scared of the lid coming off, you could always just put a little bit of sellotape on it just to hold it down on both sides. So you can make a shaker. You could, if you didn't have any of those things, but you've got an old toilet roll, you could make something like that. If you just take the end of the toilet roll and squeeze it and put a couple of staples in, like that, that will tie up the end. And now you've got a container. You've got an absolute container. So I'm just going to use it as a scoop. It's right. Oh, everything's clear. And then I've got a bit of rice. Now I'm going to squeeze it the other way. Ooh. This is actually half a kitchen roll, so it hasn't been anywhere near the toilet. And what a good shaker that is. And just because it's that shape, if you're a bit scared about it coming out, again, put some sellotape all over the edge to stop it coming out. I wouldn't like all the rice to spill out, but that's easy. And then you can take your felt pens and just colour it all in. That would be good fun. What about something to bang? Yeah, I think so, something to bang. Now you could just get a pot like this and just bang the top. You could find a Pringle pot, but I think it'd be really good to make something to bang with. What do you reckon? So if you can find a straw or just a pen or maybe a chopstick or something, bit of old tin foil, put it over the end and just scrunch it until it makes like the head of a beater. And then suddenly look what you've got. You've got something that makes a much better sound. Are you ready? Can you see this? So cool. And I think you need to make 2, don't you, so that you can play drums properly. And the final thing you can do is you could make something that you could pluck. A bit like a guitar, but obviously not a guitar. Now, if you've got an old tissue box or something like that that's got a hole in the top, they are perfect. But I've just found here some old rubber bands and just one of those Chinese takeaway pots. And each of the rubber bands makes a different sound depending on how big it is and how fat it is and how long it is. So I'm just going to put some of these on very simply. Just spring them over like this. I happen to have some different colour ones, but you might have just the brown ones. But they're very easy to find. Quite often we have them round our post, don't we, when the letters come through the post. Let's see. I wonder how many I can fit on here. Maybe one more. Let's have the big chunky. Oh, that sounds a good sound. Did you hear that already? Oh, I think I want one more. The pink one. Right. Now, oops. Let's get that blue one under there. So, listen. Can you hear them? They're all different sounds. Now, if you Oh, can you hear? This one is much, much lower, isn't it, than this one? You can almost make a tune. What fun! I'd love to see and hear your musical instruments. Something to bang, something to pluck, and something to shake. I look forward to seeing you later on in the week when we join in with our Zooms. But if you haven't got time to do that, maybe take a photo of something and ask Mummy or Daddy to post it on our group pages. We'd love to see what you're making. Let me just pray before we go. Jesus, we thank you that you are here with us at the beginning of a new year. We thank you that we can stop and we can hear you. We don't know what the future's going to bring, but we trust you and we know that you are in charge. And we look forward to finding more out about you this term. Amen. Great to see you. See you later. Bye.